YouTube now. Let's figure out if that has worked. Okay, should be going live. Figure out if that has worked. And it has. All right, we are live. Well, welcome everyone to this week's Mandarin Blueprint Lite onboarding and Q&A. Just a chance for us to talk through the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community, what we do here at Mandarin Blueprint, if you've had any questions that have come up along the way. So what I'm going to do is there is a chat that is available on YouTube, and so I will look at that, but I will prioritize questions and answers that come through either in the Q&A function here on Zoom. I've also just set up the webinar chat to make sure that everybody can post. Okay, attendees can now chat with everyone. So, hello, 你们好. Okay, cool. So you're now available to chat in the webinar on Zoom, and I will also be looking at the YouTube chat as well. So if you have any questions about the Mandarin Blueprint community, Mandarin Blueprint Lite, or anything like that, of course you can ask those. But also, I would love to hear any good news from the past week relating to some of your Chinese studies. So those of you who have started the Blueprint Lite, how has it been going? What have you achieved so far this week? What are your big achievements that you want to share with the rest of the community? Let me just see if I can let me see if I can pop out the chat. Oh, I realize why I can't pop the chat up because I'm on the wrong account. Give me a second here to switch to the right YouTube account. Okay, perfect. So now I should be able to pop out the chat and we can have YouTube and the Zoom chat all together. So those of you who are seeing this on YouTube and are not a member of the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community, in the description, you'll see a link there. It says, go here to learn Chinese for free. And what that's referring to is our Mandarin Blueprint Lite course. And this is a massive course that is no charge. So it is 900 lessons. It covers about 124 characters with flashcards, 200 altogether. And it gets you to the point where you can read Chinese sentences without needing pinyin. So that's reading the real characters, knowing how they're pronounced, knowing what they mean, and being able to write them even. Um, so let's see here. So Sunil asks, can you clarify which subscriptions we need? Anki, nope, you do not need Anki. Traverse is free. You just have to make your account. So Mandarin Blueprint Lite comes with Traverse flashcards. And so you can just, if you follow the instructions on the Mandarin Blueprint Lite onboarding, it will explain to you how to make your account, but it is free. So that's there. And then Kajabi, all this is free. It's all a part of signing up for Mandarin Blueprint Lite. So Kajabi is Kajabi is merely the platform that runs courses.mandarinblueprint.com. So we just want to make sure that you got your initial sign up request. So like when you first signed up, you would have received an email that said your Mandarin Blueprint course login details. And from there, you should be able to get into the course itself. And just to show you what I'm talking about there, let me just share my screen here for a moment so you can see what I mean. So on screen, you'll see courses.mandarinblueprint.com. If you have Mandarin Blueprint Lite, you'll have phases 1, 2, and 3 here. And so you can see here levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are these 46 characters and what you learn from that, and so on and so forth. It's about 155 lessons in phase 1. Not every single lesson needs your full attention the entire time, but the ones that are the primary lessons, that's where you learn how to master a character very quickly. And so by doing that, by going through this course, you'll be able to understand how to learn the pronunciation, the tone, the character components and the meaning of a Chinese character, and that will allow you to then put characters together to create words in phase two. And then by the end of phase two, you'll be able to put those words together to create sentences in phase three. And once you start reading Chinese sentences, then you start getting comprehensible input. Comprehensible input is the key to language acquisition. So this is the journey you take to start getting comprehensible input every single day and building your Chinese brain. All right. All right, so let me know, Sunil, if that is answering your question there. And by the way, some of you in the webinar chat are sending messages to just host and panelist, which is not necessarily a problem, but if you send to everyone, then everybody in the group can see your questions. And so hello to, by the way, those of you who are here in the Zoom webinar, Edward, Georgina, Hazel, Javier, Maria, my computer, a returning member, my computer, that one. Nick, Paul, Randolph, Sunil, welcome. Thank you. And let's see here. Somebody deleted their message, but said that they were getting into level 7 of the Blueprint Lite and were making good progress. That's fantastic. Okay. All right, Georgina. Let's see. So, looking at the YouTube chat here briefly, Hao, and somebody says, I really learned a lot from your channel. I'm glad to hear it. Why not join Mandarin Blueprint Lite? You can learn even more there. This is a good question. So Deepak asks, what is the benefit of learning Chinese? What is the benefit of learning Chinese? What a great question, because it sort of zooms out and says like, hey, wait a second. Why not learn to skydive? I could learn to skydive. What about knitting? Maybe I should learn to be an artist. Why learn Chinese? And first of all, the answer to some degree is there's no objective truth about this. It's more just like Chinese is worth learning for certain reasons if those things matter to you. So, and by the way, please, anyone in the chat, feel free to share your reasons why you think there's a real benefit to learning Chinese. But there's a number of different reasons, both internal and external, for wanting to learn Chinese. So the first, for me, let's talk about an internal reason. So when you learn Chinese, you learn a logographic language. Logographic language. That means that you have, instead of a alphabet and putting them together phonetically, you instead have symbols that are representative of meaning. So you could say you have these various symbols. What they call these is dialects, or more even simply put, just 字. And these are not phonetic, obviously. Now, they often have a phonetic clue in them. For example, jian here. There are other characters that look similar to this that have a similar pronunciation. I mean, just for example, this character without the bamboo on top is pronounced just jian, right? So you can see, like, if the original one is jian, and then you have that character being pronounced jian, fourth tone, or sorry, third tone, then you can see that there's at least a clue, right? But the point is, it's not a phonetic language. Instead, you have a bunch of, some people call them, the more technical term is morphemes. That's like the linguistic term, but I just like to call these, I like to call morphemes just mini meanings. Just mini meanings. And so what am I referring to there? Well, there's a lot of different words in English that display what a mini meaning like what a morpheme is. And so let me think of an example here. Um, like just, you could think of a word like, how about, okay, so unfiltered. Okay. So how many morphemes, how many mini meanings are in this word? Well, actually, three, right? You've got un, filter, and ed. And un and ed are not words, but filter is a word. So similarly, Chinese characters can be words or not, but they all have meaning with a few minor exceptions. Like there are a couple of characters that are kind of just for the purpose of like adding a sound to something, but they're the exception, not the rule. The vast majority of Chinese characters have some type of meaning, even if they're not a word. And so when you start to see a language in this way, where you've got this big bucket of meanings that you can put together to create new words, any new word that you're creating becomes a question of puzzle pieces. And so imagine that you have this massive puzzle and you have 3,000 pieces you can use. It creates this new way of seeing the world that categorizes it differently than, say, we do in English. And internally speaking, this has made my brain, just speaking subjectively, more able to solve problems because I have more than one operating system. And the basis of one operating system is this native language I have called English that has six root languages and has a very kind of chaotic set of roots. Although I think English is a great language for a number of reasons, but still it's all over the place versus this fairly unified logographic language of many meanings. It gives me a different way of viewing the world for almost any type of problem. And so, apart from the fact that learning a language in general is very good for your brain, it even can help stave off dementia, which is amazing. I didn't believe that at first, but the science seems pretty clear on it. It also gives you this, Chinese in particular, gives you this other way of solving problems. So that's an internal reason. Now, externally, obviously, the country or the great civilization of China, pretty important, right? It's a pretty important place. And I like to point out that when it comes to China and its relationship to the world, think of it like you think of a sibling, right? Like we ultimately love our siblings, right? And I ultimately think that at the end of the day, China's a great civilization. Deepak was asking this from India. India is a great civilization. There's great civilizations in the West, but we're all sharing the same earth. We're all part of the same family. So I think we ultimately should be on the same page of like, I don't wish you like active harm, right? But on the other hand, your siblings sometimes piss you off, right? Like, I mean, it's not like your siblings never kind of annoy you or anything like that, but ultimately we love them. And I think that's the best way to try to think about the relationship that we have with China in the world. China's not going away. They're very important. It's a major economy. Their influence is significant. And also, the people in the country are often super kind and nice. So I think that it's well worth learning it, if for no other reason than it's a connection to one of the most important siblings we have on the planet. So if you're not from China, then you should take some time to get to know your brothers and sisters over there. So that's one way to look at it. Um, so I hope that makes sense there. Great question from Deepak. And there's more reasons. Obviously, I could put there's lots of opportunity in China. If you were to live there, it would be a great language to know. It's a beautiful language. Chinese poetry is. I actually like Chinese poetry. I don't really like poetry in English. Must be because I'm a troglodyte cretin or something, but I just never have connected very much with poetry in English. But Chinese poetry I find beautiful. And the just such a historical place that China is. Because, what's interesting about China is that I don't even think they view themselves as a nation state. They view themselves as a civilization primarily that has a state that happens to be associated with it, if that makes sense. Like the kind of concept of a nation state is fairly modern. China sees themselves as a great civilization, the great civilization of the Yellow River Valley, right? Like it's like one of the oldest civilizations in the world that's been, continuous. And I mean, you can make the argument that it's like, well, there's been invasions and changes in power, but there have been human beings making their way in the world, in that part of the world for a long, long time. And so there's so many memes that have passed down the generations and so much wisdom that is present in the very language itself. So it's a beautiful thing to learn. And so I hope that helps give some ideas of the benefits of knowing Chinese. All right. Marielle says, I'm 2 weeks in, almost at level 10, but the flashcards are starting to pile up. Wink. Well, sometimes I think that people need a little bit of a reframe here because, you know, I used to do at my height when I was really deep in the Chinese learning. I was doing like 500 or 600 flashcards a day. Include now the most of those were sentence flashcards, and I also spent too long on it. I should have done a lot more reading of books and stuff like that. But I think sometimes people have a sense that like you shouldn't have a lot of flashcards, but like, look, Chinese is not to be taken lightly. There's a lot to learn. Now, if you're fine with it taking you 10 years, then fine. You can do like 30 or 40 flashcards a day. But if you want it to get to the point of like fluency and literacy in the next say 2 or 3 years, which is possible. Heck, you could do it in a year if you were dedicated enough. Then you better get ready for some high flashcard counts, at least for a season of it, not for the entire thing. You kind of need to get your baseline of understanding first, and then you can get your then from there you can get your uh, how could you put it? The Like after you get your baseline understanding of the characters, about 1,000 characters and 500 words, you can do a lot more striking out into graded content, native content, and kind of have a more eclectic way of learning. But there does need to be a sort of disciplined kind of like get this stuff down first because it will build enough comprehension for you that you'll feel really good about it. So hopefully that makes sense. Hello from Germany, Dougwa. Dougwa. And Austria. So we have Austrians and Germans joining us today. Welcome, welcome. Uh, we have a question. I want to know apps that have Chinese videos and movies, both pinyin and characters. So this is a little bit of a tricky one, right? Because Chinese folks don't need pinyin, right? Like pinyin is not how they like for pinyin for Chinese people is mostly about typing, right? So like they already kind of know the sounds for the most part. Like they learn the characters as kids and they understand the spoken language first. So it's tricky to find anything that has the pinyin in it, which is why learning the characters is really useful. If you can learn the characters, then you can have the characters only, and then you don't need the pinyin. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some elements of that like there might be some learning tools out there that include pinyin. For example, Link Lingq has articles where you can turn pinyin on and off. So that's lingq.com link. It's a good one. It is a subscription service though. So, if you don't want to pay for that, then there's other things where you can convert Chinese into pinyin, but it's tricky to find TV shows where the pinyin is included. And that's because Language Reactor may have that a little bit, but even still, it's not always there because a lot of Chinese subtitles are hard coded. That is to say, it's not a subtitle file that's being added to it. It's literally edited into the video. And why is this? Well, because within China, there are a lot of different languages. In fact, let me see here. I can show you something. Language map. Yeah, here we go. This is the classic one I've seen many times. Okay, let me share this with you guys. So I found this on Reddit. So if you look here, you can see that these are all of the various languages and dialects in China. And now this can be a little bit misleading, which I'll explain in a second. But because there are so many languages and dialects in China, therefore Mandarin isn't the only one that people speak. In particular, if we're talking about something like Hakka, this language here, boy, 客家is what it's called in Mandarin. That sounds way different than Mandarin. Way different. Now, something like Sichuanese, which is what's interesting is that they're not even really kind of including that here. They're kind of just linking it in with Mandarin. But even within Mandarin, there's things like Sichuanese, which is what I grew up. I almost feel like my time in China was like when I was growing up from the ages of 23 to 35. But when I was in Chengdu, which is around here, even they speak a version of Mandarin that's a bit different. But here's the point they all use the same writing system, right? So if they all use the same writing system, then you can have the Chinese characters at the bottom. And even though the nationally broadcast show is in Mandarin, somebody who only speaks Hakka will still be able to understand it. Now, here's the thing though. The reason why I said that this is a little bit misleading, this map, is because it makes it seem like only people in this blue part, which is admittedly the biggest part, but it makes it seem like only people in this blue part are the ones that speak Mandarin. But it's not true. Everybody can speak Mandarin these days. Some older people can't if they're, maybe older than 60 or so. They only speak their local dialect. But because Mandarin was made the sort of standard language of the country, um, in the 50s, it's now at the point where most people can speak Mandarin as well as their local dialect. And schools have Mandarin classes, and then they also have their local dialect classes as well. But like most of the time, like these days, kids are definitely learning Mandarin. So even though Mandarin as the primary language is only covering a part of the country, it's important to know that like all of these various dialects here, these people these days can speak Mandarin as well. And like for example, Yue, which is sort of known as Cantonese, this is one of those things where people actually can speak, for the most part, this area probably has more Mandarin speakers now than it does Cantonese speakers because it grew so much after the reform and opening up. And most of the people who live in Guangdong now don't are not from there. So there's actually probably more Mandarin speakers in this area now than there are Cantonese speakers. They might speak both, but I wouldn't be surprised because like Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Dongguan, Zhuhai, these various cities were like nothing long ago. I mean, Guangzhou was a significant city, but Shenzhen was like a fishing village. And then they did the reform and opening up, and now it's a massive city. You think all those people are from there? No, they came from other parts of the country. So now I wouldn't be surprised if there's more Mandarin speakers there than Cantonese speakers. So this is all just to say it's well worth learning Mandarin and not one of the local dialects because the local dialect will only really work for you in that small geographical region and all the people will speak Mandarin anyway. So the question originally was about subtitles. It's hard to find soft coded subtitles because almost every TV show already has the subtitles hard coded in. Now, these days, I bet there's AI tools that can like figure out what the subtitles are by analyzing the video and then pulling them out and making an SRT file. But, it's just not as easy as you might think because, there's not a separate file you can use to create the flashcards many of the times. Okay, let me go to the Q&A here on the webinar, and obligatory reminder that if you are watching this on YouTube, you are more than welcome to join the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community. If you go to the YouTube video here and you see the first thing, it says, go here to learn Chinese for free in the description of the video. That by clicking that link, that'll give you access to our course, the Blueprint Lite. And it's the first 20 levels of the Blueprint. The first 13 levels have flashcards with them, and it gets you to the point of reading Chinese characters without needing pinyin and being able to understand full sentences. So it's pretty neat. All right, so let me go to the Q&A here. Nick says, can you modify the pinyin part for your own needs? I think that I'm going to need you to clarify that question, Nick, because I'm not sure what you mean by modify the pinyin part. Like, pinyin is what it is, but maybe you're referring to the Hanzi movie method here. I'm not sure. The Hanzi movie method is our method for learning characters. We made some modifications to that, but that was for the mnemonics. That's not specifically for the idea that pinyin is different or something like that. Pinyin is set. It was set by some folks in China in the 50s. The father of pinyin died a few years ago. He'd lived to like a ripe old age of like 95 or something. If you could clarify that question, Nick, I'm not sure I know what you're getting at. And then Georgina asks, is the printout mnemonic cheat sheet in Living Links available to MB Lite members? Let me see here. Right. Yeah. So that's one of those things that not exactly sure how it happened, but I think that Luke decided to change the approach to the MB Lite Living Links sections. Let me just check here. I know what he did there was he created a living link generator through AI that you can use. Um, but I do think that cheat sheet is still quite useful. So let me see if I can find that and put it in one of these lessons because it is quite useful. And I think he decided to take a different approach, but like it doesn't make sense to me to completely get rid of it. So let me just check this out here. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to give you the ability to get that, Georgina. Um, I'm going to save it here, and if you go to this lesson in MB Lite, I'm going to send it to you here. Actually, I'll drop it in the chat. If you go to this lesson in MB Lite, you'll be able to download it from there. Okay? It's in the download section. I just moved it there. Um, so yeah, you can use that. It'll be helpful for you. All right. All right, great. Okay, going back to the webinar chat here, I see here that Nick said, yeah, the Hanzi movie method, like put your own concepts of rooms or scale. So I know what you're getting at, and so here's what I'll show you that will help with this. So it is a little bit risky to change the rules too much if you don't know why you're changing the rule. If you totally understand the rule and then you break it consciously, then that's okay. The goal here is just to make it so that you remember the character long enough to see it in context and remember it forever. Like eventually you'll remember the characters forever because you get enough exposure to anything and it becomes just a part of you. It becomes a part of who you are. Like there are so many Chinese characters that I will never forget because I've just seen them so many times. And the Hanzi movie method serves as a bridge to connect them. So let me share with you what I mean. So when it comes to the Hanzi movie method, and here we are in phase one, let's go ahead and go in here and go into a particular lesson. It doesn't really matter where. And okay, how our opinion chart is different. So the Hanzi movie method opinion chart. So if you'll notice what I did there is I went into the sidebar and I found the how our opinion chart is different article here. I'm going to send the article into the Zoom chat as well as into the YouTube chat so people can know what I'm talking about here. And so what this is all about, what is this all about? Well, we use a mnemonic technique to remember the pinyin by associating it with people and places. Okay. So pinyin is surprisingly mathematical. In fact, we could even just take the pronunciation pin from pinyin. Okay, we have P-I-N and its first tone. Okay, so every Chinese syllable has some combination of only three elements. An initial sound, which in this case is P, a final sound, which in this case is in, and a tone, which in this case is first. Okay, so what we do with our method is we say, okay, let's associate initial sounds with a person that we'll call an actor. Okay, and then let's associate the final sound with a place, and we'll call that a set. And I almost want to say like that's almost like a movie studio, the place, because the tone is like the room within the set. So it's also a place, but it's like I'll say a room, right? And this is a room within set. Okay. And so for me, this set was my elementary school. Okay. And I would have this happen because it's first tone outside the entrance. So, you know, the set as a whole for me is Hatfield Elementary. Okay. And the room within the set is, well, it's first tone, so we'll just say outside the entrance. Okay. Now, the person I'm going to wait to talk about here because now I've reached the point to explain why we changed the pinyin chart, or at least recategorized it. We didn't change the pinyin chart in the sense of we changed we changed how Chinese works. We changed it by doing basically uh, we recategorized it to make kind of four mini pinyin charts. So let me show what I mean. Um, in Chinese, you'll have something like uh, li, lu, lu. These are all sounds that you could make in Chinese, right? Now, the original pinyin categorization for these would be L for all of these, and the final would be I, U, U, right? But what we do with Chinese or with sort of the Hanzi method is we say these are three different initials. Li, Lu, Lu. They themselves are the initials. Why? Why do we do this? Why would we change it up? Well, it's because it's really easy to associate a first letter with a person's name. So, for example, P could be Pamela, like Pamela Anderson, right? From Baywatch. And so you can imagine Pamela Anderson and quickly imagine or quickly make the association Pamela Anderson, P, right? We're also better at remembering a high quantity of faces than we are remembering a high quantity of places. This is important, right? So the original pinyin chart has 21 initials and 36 sets. But as I put it here, um, if there were no adjustments made to the finals and initials, we would have to remember 36 separate places like Hatfield Elementary School, which is kind of difficult to do, and only 21 faces, which is incredibly easy. So we switched it up. And so um, the we made it 13 finals and 55 initials instead of 21 initials and 36 finals. And here's like how it looks. So the original initials are basically Bopomofo, DTNL, ZC, et cetera, et cetera. And the Hanzi method ones, if you just add the I in the over to being an initial, then you have this other set of initials, and we call those female characters. And then if you add the U to being an initial, then you have this other set of initials, and we call those fictional characters or cartoons. And then if you add the U sound and make that a part of the initial, now you have a set of, another category. World leaders is one we use. We also use gods, like mythical gods, but there's only 6 of them, so you can kind of choose your category. And so that's how you end up getting fewer finals and more initials, aka fewer places to remember and more faces to remember, which is easier. It's just easier to remember more faces than it is places. Like try to imagine 36 discrete places from your life, especially if you're like 18 years old. Have you even been to 36 places that you could think of? It's like it's hard, right? But 13 you can usually pull off. And there are 55 celebrities that you could easily bring to mind, even if you don't realize it right now. Like bringing to mind people's faces is quite simple. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what we're trying to do there. And then Nick, to, address your question more directly, what I would say is that if you get how all of that works, and then you decide that you want to change the rules around a little bit, as long as you know what you're doing, it's okay, but just proceed with caution because you might accidentally be throwing out some baby with that bathwater. So yeah, hopefully that clarifies it a little bit. Every time there's only one initial and one final, right? Correct. Yeah, and sometimes the final is null or the initial is null. Like for example, an, the character an, which means peace. Well, there's actually no initial on that one. It's not ban or pan or san. It's just an. So in that case, the initial is null, but we have an actor you choose for that. So yeah. All right. Nice. So you guys can check that out if you'd like. All right. So going back to the YouTube chat here. Let's see what we got. Kane says they love the masterclass videos, like the pinyin video method. You would learn the parts of Sichuan separately. Have I understood that right? Because they are two singular words, but compared, create a new one, and their writing would not. Not sure that I'm totally nailing what your question is, but I can say that you do want to learn individual characters on their own. And then when you've learned both characters that make up a word, then you put them together to create that word. Now, when you look at a word like Sichuan, you might think, well, shouldn't I just learn this word? It's such a common word. It means to like, and so shouldn't I just learn that word? And the answer is there's not an absolute about this. You can learn a word before you learn the characters, but know this. There are a very limited number of words that you will be able to learn because of their high frequency. What you really want to know is that Xi and Huan are characters that are used in a lot of different words. And if you understand the characters well, it allows you to build your vocabulary rapidly later. Now, there's a lot of foundation building at the beginning. Sure, you got to learn these characters one by one. Couldn't you just skip to learning the words? But if you jump right to the word and you don't understand the characters that you are learning in front of it, then when you later learn xi le or 欢迎, and you're learning those words, you don't necessarily realize how easy they are to learn because you didn't learn the individual characters. So you're kind of you're it's short termism if you skip learning the individual characters. If you want to be fluent in the long run and maintain your fluency and literacy, in my opinion, you have to take the characters seriously and learn them one by one. Now, to be clear, I do consider learning how to speak and learning how to understand the language as being connected. However, you can have them on different paths. So you can do a speaking practice that isn't necessarily fully linked up with your character learning and understanding practice because you also have to just build up your Chinese mouth muscles and mouth movements, and you have to train your mouth to be able to say these weird sounds like 词 or 字 or 吃 or qi, right? Like these are not normal sounds for people who are not from China. And so you have to train your mouth to be able to do that. And you need to be able to train your mouth to do it in a sentence or in telling a story. And so there's a training element to learning Chinese that is can be considered a little bit separate from learning the characters one by one. But I absolutely think you should learn the characters one by one because it gives you the long-term fluency. Hope that makes sense. Marielle says, so far there are more benefits than I expected in learning Chinese. The Lite community is super friendly and helpful, and the Hanzi movie method is amazing. It even helps me learn more efficiently in other courses. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, because you learn the characters, and then you can understand things more clearly. So that's great, Marielle. And by the way, some of you are watching on YouTube, and we're also doing this on Zoom. If you're watching this on YouTube and you'd like to join Mandarin Blueprint Lite, just click that link that's right there in the description. It says, go here to learn Chinese for free. And you can sign up, join Mandarin Blueprint Lite, and then you can be a part of the live Zoom broadcast. All right. So going back to the chat here. Sweet spot for flashcards per day. There is not an absolute on this. So I feel like I'm saying that a lot today. This is nothing is absolute. Here's how I like to think of it. What there is there's an amount of time per day that you can spend on Chinese. So here's how I like to break it down. So um, now I am a big advocate for fitting Chinese into your day in all these little chunks, but let's just say you have a set amount of time that you're focusedly studying Chinese. Okay. So the first approximately 20%, I think that's about 20%. That is review. Okay. And so if reviewing your flashcards takes more than 20% of your time, then you need to add fewer new flashcards to your queue, right? So let's say that let's see here. If you had 2 hours a day, that would be 24 minutes. That is review time. So let's say this is a 2 hour window. Okay. Then 24 minutes, approximately, 24 minutes. That's how long you should be spending reviewing. Then for 70% of the time, learning new material. Okay. Now, the new material time, uh, I guess what is that? So if it's 70%, so it's 7 times 12. So that's what? 84 minutes. Is that right? I wish I was better at math off the top of my head. Right, 84 minutes. I was right. I should have trusted my instincts. So 84 minutes, right? And this is based on 2 hours. These are percentages, so you can adjust them for any time frame, right? And then the final 12 minutes or 10% is adding uh, flashcards. Because whatever you learned during this time, you need to add those flashcards to your review queue. And that should get you, tomorrow to have about 24 minutes or 20% worth of flashcards to review. And this kind of builds up over time and it comes to a sort of homeostasis. Now, here's the thing 20, 70, 10 is an approximation based on, how somebody might do it. It's probably fairly close, but you might find that for you, it's 25, 65, 10, or it's, 20, 60, 20. I don't know why it would take you longer to add new material than review it, but, it's 30, 60, or yeah, 30, 60, 10. Right. Whatever it is, here's the thing you don't want. You don't want your review time to overwhelm your learning time. So if your review time is taking longer than your learning time, what you need to do is not like it means that you added too much and the balance is a little bit off. Because what makes your review time longer? Adding too much new material, right? So if you add less new material, then your review time will get shorter. So what's going to happen is that this line here is going to move day by day. Because if you're doing more review time, that means you have less time to add new stuff. And so therefore the next day your review time will be less because you've added less. So it may move back and forth, but if you can find that kind of homeostasis there, uh, that should work for you. And I mean, this is good, one of those things that you have to experience it yourself. It's too individual to know exactly what the ratio is, but it's somewhere close to that 20, 70, 10. All right, we have a question from Andreas in the webinar chat here for those live on Zoom. It says, do you recommend creating a Google Sheets document and just pasting sentences in the Mandarin Blueprint course that you like as you learn the characters? And just read those sentences every day. It'll become hundreds of sentences, but it's a way to constantly cement these characters you have learned every day, and it just becomes easier and easier to read them. Or would you rather stick to Traverse slash other SRS tools? I find it easier to read a lot of sentences quickly that way rather than using SRS software. So yeah, no, this is it's a good question. And I think that I would advise an approach like this. First of all, if you like doing that, cool, do it. You can also just read the sentences on our website. You know what I mean? Like, because then you can read them one by one on the different pages. But I get the idea of it's in a spreadsheet, then it's all there. Sentences are infinite. Good. Infinite sentences. So therefore, adding every sentence to your flashcard review queue doesn't make much sense. Because why? Why do you need to keep reviewing it? It's not like it's an essential sentence. The thing that's interesting is that it's true that no one individual sentence matters, but you need a lot of them, right? So collectively, sentences matter a lot, but no individual sentence is that important. So it's the collectivism of the Chinese learning space, and so having them all in Google Sheets to read through is fine. That's perfectly fine if that makes it easier for you. I think you can just read it on our website as well, like on the course lesson page, and that will do the same thing because then you at least have the pinyin and the English and the top-down words all written out there for you. But then here's what I would do though. If you like a sentence, add it to your review queue because then you'll like going through your flashcards. And also, if a sentence is giving you trouble, right? You're like, I don't get this sentence structure or something. I want to see it more often. Then put it into your review queue. But those are the reasons. I like it or it's giving me trouble. If it's just a sentence and there's nothing really, you understand it and it's not particularly interesting to you, then just read it and move on. Because, like I say, no one sentence matters all that much. Every single character and word you're seeing in the blueprint is going to come up over and over again. You're not at risk of not learning it if you don't see it in these particular sentences we wrote in the blueprint. They're just sentences that are very likely to be at your level because we know what characters and words you've learned thus far. So hopefully that gives you some food for thought, Andres. Would you advise following the Traverse recommended flashcard review schedule, says Georgina? Yeah, so what you're referring to there, Georgina, is the spaced repetition software algorithm. And so what that is referring to the memory curve. And it's not worth trying to figure it out on your own because let me see if I can find the memory curve image. Yeah, here we go. This sort of shows it. Yeah, yeah, this shows it well enough. Okay, so let me share my screen and then I'll show you exactly what is going on here. So if you learn a new fact, right? And this is, I guess you could say days from the zero, the forgetting curve goes down like this blue line, right? So you learn something, you never review it, and so you forget it, especially if it's completely inconsequential to you, right? And you'll forget it more rapidly than this if it's something fully that genuinely is um, meaningless. So, like for example, I fed my cats yesterday. I don't remember what flavor cat food I gave them because it wasn't an important detail of my life and it's not helping me. So my brain went filter it out. And so that's the normal forgetting curve. The thing is, though, if in a day you get reminded of the fact, you review it, your forgetting curve gets a little bit shallower, meaning it takes a little bit longer for you to forget. You get reminded a second time, oh, it's even a little shallower now. You get reminded a third time, it's even shallower. You get reminded a fourth time, and eventually it's flat. You will never forget it. You see what I mean? And so there's a bunch of memory research around this that has figured out, based on how many times you got this right, this is when you should see it next in terms of how long does the average human memory, in fact, have a 90 to 95% chance of remembering it? So the traverse algorithm is doing exactly that. So when you see what's coming up in your review queue, what it's saying is that this card is ready to be reviewed now so that you're at a 90 to 95% likelihood of remembering it. It would be nice if we could get it to 100%, but that's impossible. We're humans, we're not going to remember 100% of everything. But if it can be most of it, then that means that you'll be reminded just enough to remember, but the minimum amount necessary to remember, right? So imagine that you see this card, it says, Ni hao, right? And you remember it. But then before you even get to the point of being about to forget, you see it again, Ni hao. Okay. And then you see it again, oh, Ni hao, right? You're seeing it too early. You don't need to see it again. You haven't gotten to the point where you might forget it. So it's a waste of time. You want to see the card at the last possible moment that you're going to remember it. And then it will strengthen the memory again at that moment. And then you can go the longest possible moment without having to see it again. And that spread out to your entire Chinese learning repertoire of characters and words and things that you put into your sequence means that you're going through your review in the most efficient way possible based on science research, just memory research. So hopefully that answers your question. Yes, follow the Traverse app recommended system. All right, I am going to have to sign off here in a second. Let me just see if there are any other really pressing questions here. Marielle asks about like some random things in the Hanzi movie method, like bullseye. Don't worry about that. That totally does come up later. We explain it at some point in the course, but yes, there is a reason behind that. Um, uh, nice. So yeah, you were at 90% review time. Wow. Yeah. Okay, so you're doing the Mandarin speaking and listening Kickstarter. Well, that's good. The thing about the Mandarin speaking and listening Kickstarter, that is a one-off course. So I wouldn't say that spending a lot of time on that right now. There's only 31 lessons, and it's meant to just give you some survival Chinese and get you training. There's a little bit of a different purpose to that course. That course is meant to start building up those mouth muscles, training, right? And so I would take the approach with the Mandarin speaking and listening Kickstarter of like, I'm gonna say this stuff a lot. I'm gonna become like, I want my mouth to hurt at the end of the day because I've just been training it so hard. Like that's kind of what you want to go for the mentality you want to go in with that. The flashcards are less important with MSLK. It's more just like, hey, remember, like, keep training this, keep practicing it, listen, repeat, right? It's like, and that's why it's only 31 lessons. It's not meant to be forever. It's meant to be kind of like a boot camp of get these mouth muscles built up. All right, Hassan is learning his ninth language of Mandarin. That's awesome. GG makes a good point. Don't spend time trying to reinvent the learning tools rather than just learning. That is 100% a procrastination habit. Don't overthink it. Just do it. I totally get what you mean there, GG, which is why we built it for you guys. So you don't have to overthink it. It's just, you can just follow our program. And, I understand why people want to know why. I get it. I'm a why person. Why? Why is it this way? Why not that way? But the thing is, Chinese is what it is. It's not really up to us why Chinese is what it is, but it is up to us to engage with it. So couldn't agree more. That seems like a good note to end on. Sorry that I couldn't quite get to everyone, but thanks so much. And I got to get to the next call now, but big love here from Phil here at Mandarin Blueprint and from all of us here at Mandarin Blueprint.